Hey there, welcome to Generations Wealth Talk, and my name is Todd Watley.
And I'm Weinder.
Hey Ian. So today we're going to, I think normally when we do the show, we try to be upbeat and here's some great information about different things. Today we're just going to nag a little bit.
Womp womp.
Sorry.
It won't be that bad.
But
this will be really interesting, I think.
I think so too. And we're not talking to you because we know you have everything in order, everything's done correctly, but these are for some people that you may know who have not done things, okay? Mm-hmm. So if you know someone who has put off their estate planning, financial planning, getting things done, we're going to share a few stories of how things can go really bad.
And there's some things that you can put off for a while, mm-hmm. and there's other things that really we probably don't want to put off. Because there's a lot that's outside of our control, and I think that's really what we want to talk about today is how do we control as much as we can?
Yeah.
There's things we can't control, death and taxes being the primary ones, but there's a lot that we can control, how we react to those things and how we prepare for those things.
Right, and I think people don't understand is, if you don't plan ahead, there is a plan for mm-hmm. you. It is the Arkansas statutes, which are written by lawyers, and I'll just say they benefit lawyers. If you do nothing, lawyers get involved at the end, and it is expensive, it is time-consuming, it is public knowledge to go through probate. And if people will listen to me and do what I ask them to do, we can completely avoid probate, where you pass away, boom, it's done, okay? I have a situation in my family, my wife's family, one of her in-laws, she passed away and everything's going through probate. And I was like, a 1 hour meeting with me to do A, B, and C, and they go do that, completely avoids probate, will allow everything to go quickly, cheaply, privately, and people just don't do it.
And in this case, what are they going to pay?
Mm-hmm. Between 5 and 10% of their estate simply to get it to the next generation. I know.
That sounds expensive, Todd.
It's
Is there a situation, so I want to try to think of a situation. Is there a situation where if someone comes to you, gets advice, and doesn't implement it, that they'd be in a better situation?
No, never. No.
Not a single time.
Well, I can't think of one.
We can't think of one.
Yeah.
No. Every time it would be more expensive to procrastinate or use the default plan, or as sometimes we say it, the government's plan.
Yeah.
Every single time.
Every single time. And
That's
I think
interesting.
What brought this to mind as we were walking in today, the one thing that I wanted to say is there was a couple who came to see me, and you and I both met with them, discussed things, and they're like, yeah, we'll think about that, okay? And it's like, it's important to do it. Well, strange thing is, she passed away very quickly, and he passed away soon thereafter.
Mm-hmm. Relatively young folks. I mean, mid to late 60s, I would say. Mm-hmm. Healthy when we met them. Really no concerns. Stuff had gone well. They weren't really concerned about a lot of stuff financially. There were some things we could optimize and give some purpose to those dollars. And we just were informed this week that they'd passed away.
They both passed away, and so now
we're feeling this. I hope it's okay that we're this transparent.
Yeah, I mean it's scary, and so now the family's coming in, and we're going to sit down and try to clean up this mess, and it's going to be much more difficult, and we may have to go to court and open up a court case to deal with this when it could have been taken care of so easily if they had just left our office and did what we asked them to do. Boom, taken care of and over with.
It's really not about you wanting people to do what you want them to do because you have an ego about it. I mean,
sure.
And I've worked with you long enough, I know this is the case. It's simply that it's going to be faster, less expensive, and more efficient if they do. Mm-hmm. And we care about this stuff. It pains us when we give good advice that's in the best interest of someone, mm-hmm. and they don't implement it.
I know. It's just heartbreaking. So two situations, there's two courts that I don't want clients to go to. And I don't like going to court, okay? Yeah. Generally, I don't go to court. I have people in office who do that, but we try our very best to avoid court. Two situations, guardianship. if you become incapacitated and you have no legal documents in place to deal with that, we're going to go to court.
But that won't happen to me, Todd.
Well, if you become incapacitated and you don't have documents, it is going to happen. We're going to file a lawsuit against you. We're going to get your doctor to say things about you, why you need a guardianship. Family's going to do things, and this is all in open court. Anybody can come here, anybody. So, if you have any pride or you want to keep things private, going through guardianship is not the way to do it. And the second thing is probate, okay? You're dead, but your estate, everything that you've owned, everything that you've built your entire life is now going through court, and it's public record to see how much you had and where it's going. And it can so easily be avoided if you just take a few very simple steps. And I think after the break, we'll cover that more. But
we'll talk about some.
Let's talk about some financial situations where delaying is not good.
Well, there's a handful of those, and part of it I think is when we think about why do folks sometimes procrastinate. Mm-hmm. It's kind of this ostrich in the sand kind of situation, right? Like we think about, okay, our goal is to help people to take action in their best interest. How do we figure out how they're going to do that to help them do that better? And I think one of the big things that causes people to not act is they don't really want to know how they're doing.
It's true.
I know it's like a weird way to say it. It's a weird way to think about it, but sometimes it like feels better. It's truly the ostrich in the sand. Mm-hmm. If I don't look at it, then it's not going to be a problem. Mm-hmm. Well, at some point, you've got to come up for air. At some point, the ostrich has got to come up for air. And so really, I think for most people on the financial planning side, they're afraid to start because they don't know what the conversation is going to be like, and they don't want to expose what's very private to them to someone that they don't want to be judged. Almost always that's the experience.
They don't want to be ridiculed. And
yes,
I promise
that's important.
you, we don't do that.
No.
Okay? We sit down with people and say, okay, here's where you are, okay? No judgment, no shame. Here's where you are. Let's now make you better, okay? Let's take some steps and get you where you need to be.
And it's a freeing process, really. People feel really good when they do it. It's like, but it takes some courage to get there. And I think what sometimes folks forget is, in a way, we're kind of like doctors, I mean, we see folks all the time. We've seen the whole spectrum of issues, of asset levels, of whatever, and we care deeply about our clients, but it is clinical to us in a sense. Like, we're not going to treat you differently whether you have $1 million or $10 million.
Right.
Like, the strategies we use might be different because you have different problems, but really we see people as people and we want to help them. That's the goal.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a huge thing, and really starting is the biggest challenge for a lot of folks. Now, the impact of delaying starting, especially when it comes to retirement planning or the financial side of estate planning, the impact of that could be tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, or millions of dollars. Mm-hmm. And that sounds so outrageous when I say that, but it's really true. We see it all the time.
Well, you have a graphic that shows just simply picking when to take Social Security at different times can be, is it $300,000?
It could be hundreds of thousands of dollars.
It's like a $300,000 simply on, should I do it early? Should I do it in the middle? Should I do it at the end? And if your financial advisor says, oh, just take it at the beginning because that's what we tell everybody, we'll see Ian's head explode and then say, oh my God, no, that is not good advice.
It may incidentally be good advice, but if you're getting the same advice that everyone else gets, it's cookie cutter, and how can that apply to you? Yeah. Social Security is a great example. It's very technical. People don't realize how technical it is. Mm-hmm. And everyone gets advice from their neighbor, Betty at the beauty shop, their attorney, their accountant.
Sure.
And there's a lot of technical details that go into figuring out the optimal claiming strategy.
Yeah.
And there really is one right answer on the Social Security one for someone. And so if we get it wrong, we can kind of fix it, but it's a big deal.
It's a big deal. Another thing we see is like IRAs. Mm-hmm. People, their financial planner typically throughout their entire life is don't touch that, don't touch that. There's a 10% penalty if you take it out before 59 and a half. Mm-hmm. So everybody's like hands off, hands off. once you get past 59 and a half and into your 60s and 70s, there's some substantial planning things you can do to help get IRAs from being pre-tax. And like I love to say, if you pull out your IRA statement, it's like, I have $1 million in my IRA. You really don't have $1 million in your IRA because of spendable money. You have to give Uncle Sam somewhere between 20 and 40% of that. And you really don't have $1 million. You have 400 to 600,000, and that's a big deal. Okay,
that's it, and that's sometimes uncomfortable to talk about. You
Yeah.
know, people don't want to think about it. It's another ostrich in the sand situation, the tax thing. You know, most advisors don't deal with it. One, because they don't know how to. That's a different issue. Or two, because they're incentivized to bill on the assets, and so the larger those get, the longer you defer touching them, the larger their billings are. Or, you know, they don't want to talk about it because who wants to write a check to the IRS? And when you have to do it, fine, we'll deal with it. Typically, when I ask folks, "What's the strategy for paying taxes in retirement?" Like, well, we'll deal with that when we get there. Is what people say. Like, huh?
Hope is not a strategy.
Yeah, hope's not a good strategy. So some of these, as we're talking today, and I think about some of this, I was thinking about this when we were talking about the guardianship or the incapacity. It's like, well, what if I don't want to become incapacitated? It's like, well, I just don't want to.
Yeah.
It's like, well,
none of us want to, but it just happens.
Sometimes there's things that we just can't control, and what's the plan for that? It's like it's the tax thing. It's like, well, I don't want to pay taxes. Well,
someone's going to.
It's going to happen. So you could do it the least amount or a larger amount. So it's.
See, I'm sorry, we're being naggy today, but it's just.
We got to talk about this stuff because if we don't, it seems like no one else is going to. So.
I know. Everything else is just rainbows and butterflies, and sometimes it's not. And weeks like this, where I've had a number of situations where business people have put off things, and they're like, I'll deal with it later, deal with it later, deal with it later. And I am one of those people, or used to be one of those people. It's like, I just don't want to think about it. And so we are encouraging you that we know this isn't you, but if you know someone who has put off their planning, both legal and financial, this is the time to do it. 20 years ago was the best time to do it. Well, that's gone. Let's do it today. Let's sit down, and we're going to take a break here in just a second, but I want to talk about some solutions, but then also how this can blow up on you, and how a good solution of working with both of us to truly get your plan exactly the way that it should be, how that can save you heartache, embarrassment, privacy issues. There's just a ton of things that can go wrong and will go wrong if you don't plan ahead.
Well, and before we go to break, the final thing that I'll say is, you may have planned 20 years ago. You may have created a financial plan 20 years ago or an estate plan 20 years ago. Has anything changed between then and now? The challenging thing, and then the truth is, planning is an ongoing process. And so if you haven't reviewed it in the last few years, especially if you've moved to the area, we've got to do that as well.
Well, and wouldn't you say even 5 years ago, during COVID, the financial world was greatly different than it is now. There were some things that probably were a good idea 5 years ago that have turned 180.
Some of the largest legislation relating to retirement and estate planning has happened in the last 50 years. Happened in the last 3 or 4, and hardly anyone knows about it. So, stuff changes, and it will continue to change. We're going to go to break, and we will be right back and share some specific ideas about how to avoid procrastinating any further.
Good. Yep.
Hello, I'm Dave Todd, president of Todd Films. We work alongside Bella Vista Community Television to produce some of the content you see aired here. Have you thought about reaching your customers through a television ad? We have several options for you to consider. They range from coming to our studio here, or going to your place of business, or on location. Once you have your commercial, Bella Vista Community Television has several options for you to consider for airing your commercial. Do you have a live event that you would like to capture on video? We also offer live production packages that may be of interest. Please continue to tune in to Bella Vista Community Television. We hope you are enjoying this program. And now back to the show.
Okay, we are back.
Welcome back.
So let's get down to some specifics. So I want to talk about.
Let's do rapid fire here.
Okay, rapid fire back and forth. So I will tell you, as an elder law attorney, that is what I do. Is I work primarily with older people, but we do work with people in their 40s, 50s. The most important document you can have is a power of attorney, both financial and healthcare.
But Todd, I don't want to give up control of my assets.
You do not give up your control when you have a power of attorney. Oh. I have a power of attorney. My wife is my agent under the power of attorney. I still practice law. I still write checks. I still do things. But if suddenly I can't do it, she's there to do it. Now, power of attorney dies when you die. Okay, so as long as I am alive, my agent can do things for me. And here's one thing that I vary greatly with other attorneys is your power of attorney needs to be extremely broad. It needs to let your agent do
and detailed,
whatever it needs to do and in detail. And one of those things, and we can talk about this, we don't have time to go into all of this, but one of the things you want your agent to do is to make gifts. Yes, you want them to give away your assets. And you're like, well, I don't want to do that. Well, you probably don't until you do. And when you do is, when you go into long-term care, there's some really creative things we can do, upwards of $1 million for a couple. I can get a married person on Medicaid within a month, if everything falls into place, and we do it frequently, with upwards of $1 million. Okay, the rules allow it. Medicaid is there. Medicaid lets us do it. But if you don't have a very comprehensive power of attorney, we can't do that. You will pay $9,000 or $10,000 a month for the nursing home until you run out of money.
But I don't want to go to the nursing home, Todd.
Well, nursing homes are full of people who don't want to go to the nursing home. Even for home care, okay, there is Medicaid at home care, there's assisted living. My point is, Medicaid is there, and we can work within that, but you have to have a power of attorney. And if you're incapacitated, it's too late to do the power of attorney. We have to do the guardianship. And typically, judges are very reluctant to let us do Medicaid planning under a guardianship. Okay, so
there's some gotchas there.
If there's nothing else that you do, is you need to do a power of attorney, and it needs to be very comprehensive, basically letting your agent do whatever can be done.
So if I just write one myself, then I can...
No,
Sorry.
Ian.
I'm not trying to get your blood pressure.
No, Ian.
We've only seen those a couple of times. But it seems to make sense, right? You know, I mean, it's
just ink on paper. That's what one guy told me. It's like, well, but words have meanings, okay?
That's hilarious.
And particularly if you download a power of attorney off the internet, and it's up to you to decide, do I want my agent to give away everything? No, I don't want that. No, don't allow that power. Well, okay, you're now paying for the nursing home for...
But you saved a few bucks.
You did save a few $100 by doing it yourself.
I'm getting Todd riled up. Sorry.
The other thing is, you want your agent to be able to change beneficiaries. Well, why would I want to do that? Well, if you're on if we go through this whole process of getting you qualified for Medicaid,
which the purpose is to protect your assets.
To protect your assets for someone else.
To the people that you want to give them to.
And now we find out that you're the beneficiary of someone else's life insurance policy. We need to be able to change that and not let you get the money, because you don't need money anymore. Or if you have a child on your bank account who now, God forbid, is a drug addict or is terrible with money or is about to go through a divorce, and you pass away and this money goes to that child, poof, it's gone. Okay? We need to the agent needs to be able to change the beneficiary on that bank account so that the money's not wasted. And that's just a few examples of why a financial power of attorney is crucial. Healthcare power of attorney. You know what you want. You've probably told someone in your family what you want done. Now let's make it legal, put in a legal document that says this person is my healthcare power of attorney. When I can't answer those questions, this is the person I want to go talk to the doctors, and they know what I want, and they can make my end of life process go so much easier and not having things done to me that I don't want done. That's just 2 examples.
But that's just going to happen automatically, right?
No, no, Ian.
Man, Ian's got to really get it together today.
Ian, you need to do some research. No, Ian knows exactly. He sits in meetings with me, and those are questions people ask. They're like, but really? And I'm like, yeah, really. Spend a week in my office, and I will show you situations where these people are now incapacitated. They did not do power of attorney, and they've got to spend $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 to get a guardianship. And
that's just the first year.
The first year, and they don't let us do Medicaid planning. And so you're going to lose everything. And this one document is just absolutely so important that anyone over the age of 18, okay, and we talk about older people, but if your child's over the age of 18 and they have not done a power of attorney, if they're in a car wreck or something, they're an adult. They're over 18. You have no say-so over them. You would have to go to court and get a guardianship over them to make decisions where all they have to do is do some paperwork with us.
It's amazing, thankfully a lot of folks don't have to see these situations in their real life. We see a lot of them. And so that's why we're having this conversation, is so that we can share some of these true stories and what would happen if you don't take action. And hopefully it doesn't happen, but as we said earlier, hope is not a good strategy. Right.
So what are some things financially that a person, particularly I think our focus tends to be the 50, 60, 70-year-old, someone going from a lifetime of accumulating, don't spend, to now, can I retire? Do I have enough money to retire? And how do I do that? How do I go from all of these assets being tucked away to now drawing on them and not paying Uncle Sam a huge amount of money?
There's a lot that goes into that. And I think the beginning stage is figuring out where you are and what does retirement look like for you? What do you want retirement to be? How much can you spend? A big piece of that is folks don't realize how much they can spend, or what's the strategy for taking withdrawals in retirement. Well, we hadn't thought about that until we get there.
Well, and we see a lot of people are afraid to spend money. Their entire life they have just scrimped and saved. Well, you save for some event. That event is now here. How do you transition monetarily and mentally to that? You need someone to say, here's your future. Let's, what do you call it?
We create a spending plan. Oh, stress test it?
Stress test, yes, thank you. So we can do a stress test. We take your situation and say, what if this is inflation? What if you live to be 100? We're going to show how your money will go, spending this much per month with this much inflation, interest rates, things like that, how that's going to go. And you can leave our office going, wow, I can actually go on vacation. We can do that bucket list trip, and it's not going to destroy us.
Well, and 2 things happen. We need to figure out what you want to happen and what you don't want to happen. Because the couple that we talked about, they had saved well, they had inherited some money. They didn't overspend, but we weren't able to really give that money purpose in the way that they wanted to.
Right.
And so, what if what you don't want to happen happens, which is you're not able to spend it all. One of you gets sick, both of you get sick. What's the plan for that? How do we work through that? And these are harder conversations to have, but we need to have clarity. And when you have clarity about what your options are and what you can do, you're much more comfortable taking action and doing those things.
Right.
And another one that's really big that, no matter where you are in your financial journey, check your beneficiaries. Check your beneficiaries. This is one we saw really recently.
Those are fun meetings.
Yeah, those are fun. My favorite is there's some companies that they will list the beneficiaries on the statement.
Okay.
So we had one conversation with nice folks who they've been with an advisor for 25 years, and we were like, hey, here's some ideas, blah blah, and they're like, oh no, they got it on the statement. No beneficiaries listed. I'm like, oh, they got it, huh? The most basic thing you could possibly do. What else are they missing?
Okay, so. one more quick example is when there's a second marriage and the life insurance goes to the previous wife. Whoops. So there's a lot of things you need to be aware of, a lot of things we're just nagging you to pick up the phone, give us a
Things to
call.
think about that you may not think about.
Just, 479-601-4119, 479-601-4119. Give our office a call, and we would love to help you get everything together. Let both of us meet with you so we can get everything, financial, legal, all together and done. All right. Thank you all very much, and we'll see you next time.